We hope that young witnesses have been enjoying our series, My Teen Life. It features real issues that you face today. Our next episode deals with one of life's most important questions. Why believe in God? Have you ever asked yourself that, even though you've been reading the Bible and attending meetings for years? Listen to your peers explain how they convince themselves that God does exist.
So I'm sitting in physics class, and all of a sudden, the subject of evolution comes up.
When my teacher asked me why, to give the reason why I don't believe in evolution, I remember all I could say was, it's just because I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses and that's my belief.
Many students actually believe, they seem so sure that evolution is a fact.
I could feel my hands my palms getting sweaty and just nervous.
I felt intimidated. I just sat there. I felt paralyzed and I couldn't defend the truth.
Why can't I explain this? I could explain why I don't salute the flag so easily, why I don't celebrate birthdays so easily. I didn't understand why I couldn't explain this specific topic.
I had doubts and I was asking myself questions like, does God really exist? Is the Bible accurate?
I'm sorry, I think they're putting the cart before the horse here in this latest installment of fake JW YouTube vloggers. I mean, how else do we describe this? I actually got a bit of pushback on the last sushi where I talked about the first installment, thumbnail here if Tibor is gracious. I had one or two people saying, where does it say this is a YouTube vlog? Obviously, it's not going on YouTube or it's not intended for YouTube. But this is very much inspired by YouTube. The organization here very much using the YouTube format, trying to make everything look organic and spontaneous, even though these are Jehovah's Witness youths who have been essentially pushed in front of the camera and told to speak on a certain subject and only say things that will meet with the approval of the organization. In this case, on the subject of evolution, and again, isn't this an issue that should really be tied up before you get baptized? I found it interesting when Robert Lucioni said,
why believe in God? Have you ever asked yourself that? Even though you've been reading the Bible and attending meetings for years?
Reading the Bible and attending meetings for years? You mean as a Jehovah's Witness? So you become a Jehovah's Witness, let's face it, in many cases because you've been raised in the Jehovah's Witness religion, and only after many years of reading the Bible and attending meetings do you get round to asking the question, is God real? Why believe in God? Shouldn't that be the first thing you think about? But it isn't, is it? Because again, in most cases, Jehovah's Witnesses are raised from birth, and you never get a lesson 1 where your parents sit you down and say, here are the arguments for God. Lesson 2 will be, this God's name is Jehovah. Lesson 3 will be, the Bible is God's word. It's never laid out for you like that. You're just pushed in at the deep end and told what your religious beliefs are. You're never allowed to organically arrive at your beliefs. So this entire fake YouTuber thing, this particular episode is clearly addressing that problem, which I'm sure is a huge issue for many young Jehovah's Witnesses. They just inherit these beliefs. They can't really explain them. And then they find themselves in a school setting where the science of evolution is being taught to them. But as Jehovah's Witnesses, they are expected to defend their belief in God. So they're going to school not just to learn, but to preach. And in that situation, as we've seen in dramatization after dramatization, testimonial after testimonial, in that situation, what's expected of them is that they correct the teacher and effectively momentarily take over the lesson so that they are schooling the class on evolution actually being a lie and a conspiracy.
So she sat me down at the computer. We went to jw.org, and then in the search box, my mom told me to type in anything that was the problem, what I had questions on. So we typed in evolution. That's when I clicked on the Origin of Life brochure. It just started like coming in, like everything started clicking as if like, there's a light bulb that went off.
So in one of the videos in the viewpoints on this Origin of Life section, it talked about the brain and how the brain is so complex that billions and billions of neurons are connected to one another. It amazed me so much that how, because of the brain, we can move our hands, we can move our feet, we can do facial expressions, we can do so many things because of this great part of the body, the brain.
It was, the exact questions that I was having trouble understanding. And each question I was like, oh, I remember reading this in, one of the watchtowers or with the books I was studying. But it broke it down into ways that, in words that are simple for me to understand at that point. So it was almost, it felt like Jehovah was talking to me through this brochure. And I was like, this is what I need to read. And that's what helped me get through it.
So I thought to myself, this couldn't have been made just by chance. It couldn't just exist by an accident. It had to be created. It had to be designed.
So I was able to go back and I went to my science class and I told my teacher, I was like, I'm ready to explain why.
So here we go again. It's physics class. It's the same topic all over again, but this time it was different. I was able to defend my faith in Jehovah.
I realized that, Jehovah always provides the answers to any topic, anything. I just have to be willing to go and find it.
Whenever I have questions about anything, I look for the answers, but first I pray to Jehovah. And Jehovah has made it so easy for us to find the truth. I'm totally convinced that whatever he says in the Bible, we can completely trust in it.
As we saw, it's important that you teens do more than disprove evolution. The underlying issue is whether you personally believe in God. Use your power of reason to prove to yourself that he does exist.
How have they done that, though, Robert Lucioni? How have these two young people disproven evolution and proven the existence of God in what we've just seen? Which, by the way, was a train wreck. I mean, that could have been an SNL skit, couldn't it? All we've seen there is the perfect advertisement for how dependent on cult indoctrination Jehovah's Witness kids are expected to be. Everything boils down to the publications. Oh, if you have a question, go straight to our publications. You'll find the answer there. There's an answer for everything in our publications. No need to stray anywhere else. No need to listen to what scientists have to say. No need to listen to what your school teacher has to say. The publications trump everything. The publications know everything. All of the knowledge is there. Thank you for making that message loud and clear in this horrendous segment and effectively doing my job for me by showing how controlling and manipulative this organization is, specifically in the lives of young people. But I'll ask again, how did these young people disprove evolution and prove God? We've heard only one argument to my knowledge.
So in one of the videos in the viewpoints on this Origin of Life section, it talked about the brain and how the brain is so complex that Billions and billions of neurons are connected to one another. So I thought to myself, this couldn't have been made just by chance. It couldn't just exist by an accident. It had to be created. It had to be designed.
That's the argument. That's the proof of God. That's evolution being disproved, apparently. Just the complexity of the brain. That's all you need, folks. It's frankly insulting the intelligence of my viewers to dignify this with a response, but suffice to say, complexity does not disprove evolution. Once you actually understand how evolution works, what evolution actually is, you understand that complexity is inevitable. And because Watchtower, because the makers of this propaganda don't understand evolution, because they can't be bothered to educate themselves on what it is they're trying to dismantle, they don't understand the other side of the argument. They keep making arguments that bear no relation to evolution. This is exactly the sort of ignorance you can expect to see in creationist propaganda. After all, if the writers were to properly inform themselves about evolution, if they were to, for example, read the works of Richard Dawkins and other experts in this area, they'd probably lose their faith. So it's kind of a requirement not to understand evolution when you're writing creationist propaganda. And I noticed one of the brochures referred to was the Origin of Life brochure. I would just like to point my viewers to an interview I did on this channel, thumbnail here if Tibor is gracious. A scientist reacts to Jehovah's Witness anti-evolution brochures featuring Dr. Jerry Coyne. Yes, Dr. Coyne came on the channel and we had a good old time going point by point over some of the ludicrous stuff that's in these creationist brochures, which apparently were so convincing. But ultimately, we haven't had a single argument disproving evolution and proving the theist God in the segment we've just seen. All we've had is, what's his name, Elibaldo, talking about how this particular issue of complexity was convincing for him. And we had both Elibaldo and Crystal waxing lyrical about the publications. That's it. That's apparently the answer for any young Jehovah's Witnesses, any young ones who are troubled about this issue of evolution and whether God is real or not. The ultimate answer is just read the publications, just read our creationist propaganda materials, and all will explain itself.